Hi, I'm Beth. Welcome back to my basement yoga studio for this short, gentle practice. So today's focus practice is going to be on the topic of grounding. So when we think about grounding generally means the idea of rooting ourselves, connecting, feeling safe in our bodies, and it can help to have a sense of grounding when we're dealing with emotions or situations that are overwhelming. So my meditation practice I've been doing this week, actually the yoga practice I did at the start of the week on Monday the 6th, was a desk practice that you can do for grounding, and I introduced a few skills in that practice. This is another practice you could use. This is more yoga postures or asana work that you can use to help facilitate your grounding. So for today's practice, I'm set up near a wall. You can have your mat faced in either direction. You'll see me moving a little bit, mainly to stay in your frame, in your point of view. You don't really need any other props other than your wall, although I have a few nearby. I have a pillow that I might use to sit on to make my postures a little more comfortable at times. And then the other prop I have, it's this pretty little box that someone gave to me. I'm using this in lieu of a yoga block. You don't need it, but I'll show you where maybe having something that brings the floor up a little closer to you might be helpful. So we'll start for a few moments seated. Since I'm already on my knees and it also raises me up a little bit on the camera, I'm just gonna sit like this. You can sit cross-legged, you can sit with your back to the wall. I'm actually gonna put my little mini pillow behind me just to make my seat a little more comfortable here. So find your comfortable seat. And if you want to be lying down to open up this practice, that's fine too. I like to take a few moments at the start of my yoga practices to do a little bit of a mini check-in. This is a mindful pause. This is a chance for you to be in this moment, and that's what mindfulness is about, and that's really a lot of what grounding is about, is being present in the present moment, being with whatever is right now. So see if you can start to connect your attention to your physical body. So that might be the feeling of your body seated on the ground underneath you, whatever is seated on the ground. In this case, it's my shins. It might be your bottom, your hips. If you're lying, it might be your whole back body. So feeling connected, the parts of you that are touching the floor, sense that, note that. And then also to be connected to the sense of breath in your body. So wherever you notice the breath, wherever you most easily feel or physically access the breath, maybe in the area of your nose, your chest, your abdomen. See if you can tune into about 2 or 3 breaths, simply noticing that your body is breathing. Part of this grounding process is noticing that you're basically all right right now, in this present moment. There might be a lot of things going on out in the world. There might be things going on in your own life. And right now in this moment, you're breathing, your heart is beating. You are basically all right. So it's not invalidating what might be wrong. It's simply drawing your attention to the fact that you're basically all right. Maybe one more breath here. And we'll start to transition to a hands and knees position. Just so you can see me well, I'll be off my mat a little bit for that. You can turn whichever way works best for you to stay on your mat. Actually, I might turn toward you. Move my little mini prop out of the way. I'm going to take my little pillow out of the way. If you need something under your knees, if whatever you're kneeling on feels a little too strong, a little too harsh on your knees, go ahead and put that right under one or both knees. I'm going to set my pillow aside. So when we come to hands and knees or tabletop position, we want to have a really firm setup. This is our foundation. Knees are approximately under our hips, and then my hands are going to come down so that they're underneath my shoulders. Maybe a little bit forward of my shoulders if I feel that directly underneath doesn't feel comfortable on my shoulders. I'm going to push into the entire pads of my finger, but especially in between my thumb and my index finger, because we tend to sort of lean off to the sides. And I allow my back to have its natural curve. So there's a little natural curve of the low back, and yet my abdomen is loosely, well, somewhat engaged, lightly engaged. That's what I was looking to say. And then I will move into cat-cow, which is a spinal stretch. So even though I'm looking at you, you want to keep the back of your neck long in these poses. And as you breathe in, allow your heart, your abdomen to come down toward the floor. As you look a little bit forward, chin raises a little bit, and your tailbone goes up a little bit in the back. And then as you exhale, chin tucks in, tail tucks under, as you arch up. This is cat pose, so you're arching up like an angry cat. And then continue through those two movements, coming forward into cow, and this is your udders, and exhaling back into cat. If the reverse of this breathing feels better for you, that's fine, as long as you're breathing with your movement. And see if you can start to feel a sense of groundedness here, the solid connection between your body and the floor. Especially when you exhale up into that cat, you might feel a little bit of pushing down the energy into your hands, and then feel that energy come back up into your body. And we'll take about one more in each direction. It's fine if you're going at a different pace than I am. And then come back to neutral. Again, once more, feel solid and strong. Feel the earth supporting you. The sense of the floor. Most of us are probably indoors. The floor underneath you, but the earth underneath that supporting us all. Let's start to walk your hands in. I'm going to come to an upright kneeling position. I'll turn around a little bit here. And then this is where you might want your little prop. I'm going to put my box on this side. Feel in this upright kneeling position. The tops of my feet are on the ground, my knees. Again, you can have extra cushioning or a blanket under your knees if that's something that feels good to you. I'm going to take my leg that's closer to the screen and turn the knee out. So I'm forming sort of a right angle here. Your angle doesn't have to be perfect. This is not geometry. But I'm looking for a sense of openness with my hips. It's fine if the one hip turns a little bit in this direction, the pelvis turns a little bit. This openness will help those feelings from being seated all day. We're going to do a kneeling side angle pose. So for kneeling side angle, I'm going to reach up with the opposite arm and then slide a little bit over my leg, keeping my hip structure, my pelvic structure about at the same place, getting a long stretch in the side body. This is my right side. The elbow can come down to the thigh. You might open up this arm, whatever feels good. And remember, at least how I teach yoga, we're looking more for how things feel in your body versus how they look. How it looks doesn't tell me anything. It doesn't really tell you anything either. How it feels tells you everything. And then moving with breath, exhale, come back up. And so we'll go the other way in kind of a little reverse kneeling warrior. And here's where you might want to reach toward an object if the floor feels really far away. Now we'll start to lean away from the bent knee. Again, reaching the opposite arm up and overhead. So you see how my hand just naturally found that little box below me. And maybe you have more room, maybe, see if I can now move it. Maybe the floor feels close to you. Doesn't matter unless this feels better than this. And then one more breath. And as you exhale, feel how that grounding of the bottom hand starts to release and you ground more into the opposite foot to draw your body upright. All right, and then we'll switch to the other side. So I'll slide my prop over to this side. Come back to my standing kneeling posture. Reset, so find this grounding place. You could do this standing, you'd be in mountain pose, and that would be our solid place, our steady place, and yet not stiff. Solid and steady like a mountain, that is where we'll feel grounded. I take my opposite knee, foot flat on the ground, knee turned out, so setting up for my kneeling side angle pose. And then going toward the bent knee first. And if you need to adjust your foot, if it comes a little forward of your hip, if your hip feels more constricted on this side, that's fine. I'm gonna pretty much have my heel in line with or a little behind my knee because that feels good for me. Inhale, arm up, reach, so long reach on this side of the body. Again, that sense I mentioned before of the things that are touching the floor, the ground, push into the ground. The energy from that helps us rise back up, then slide any amount over your bent knee. Breathe as you're in the poses. You might use your opposite hand to adjust your ribs so that they face the sky a little more. The sky is my basement drop ceiling, but you know, same thing. And then with your next breath in, root into your feet, rise up with your arm, come back up, your foot stays out to the side. This time we do our reverse warrior, so I'll see if my prop is in the right spot, reaching my opposite arm up long, so this time it's the same arm as bent leg, and then as I exhale, I do the lateral stretch down the other side, reaching for the prop, and the prop actually helps me keep my side bodies, especially the low side body, because that's going to sometimes want to crunch if I'm reaching directly for the floor, helps me to get more length there. So that actually feels really nice for me today. Breathing into this length. Breathing into the parts that are supporting my body on the floor. And then with an exhale, I'm going to lift the parts up to the sky, and next exhale, release. All right, I'm going to turn around more this way on my mat, and you might want to be close to the wall for the next pose we'll do after this one. We're going to rest briefly in child's pose or puppy pose. So both are kneeling poses, and one, the hips are more back toward the heels, and that's child's pose. In puppy pose, our hips are more up in the air. The upper body forms pretty much the same shape. So I'll start with my hips up. I'm going to start from all fours. And then to come into puppy pose or melting heart pose, I'm going to walk my hands forward, keeping my elbows straight, and begin to melt my heart or my chest toward the floor so that my forehead can come down to the floor. So you'll see that my hips stay up over my knees. And with each breath, I'm trying to let my chest just fill with breath and lower more toward the floor. If I want to move this more into a child's pose, I'll touch my toes together, my big toes, widen my knees as much apart that feels right for me. And for me, I like my knees a little wider in child's. And then I'll start keeping my arms extended, but sending my hips back toward my heels. And you'll see they won't touch, but I'm going back. I'm folding from the hip crease, going back as much as feels comfortable. And again, allowing my head to come down to the floor. If your head doesn't comfortably reach the floor, option to cross your arms like this. You can also take that little pillow or blanket, whatever you have. after about 3 breaths, slowly and deliberately raise yourself back up to hands and knees. And this time, tuck your toes in your hands and knees position. See if you can get all 10 toes tucked under. That means those little pinkies too. Maybe you have to manually give them a little help. And then very slowly, because depending on how much you've been wearing shoes, how used to your feet are stretching this way, start to walk your hands back toward your knees. Now I can tell you this was super hard and painful for me when I first started doing it. I've done it a little more, so I'm used to doing it a little more now. I can walk my hands all the way back toward my knees. You might be here and saying, what is she doing? This is impossible. Go to wherever is right for you and for your body. Remember, it's what it feels like, and that's part of the grounding into that sense of your own body. If you have more space in your own body, you might walk your hands a little in further. You might use the wall to help yourself a little bit more upright. Maybe a little side prop to balance yourself. My toes are still tucked. Whatever position you're in, if you're more in hands and knees with the toes tucked, more up here, it's all good. That means you're going to the place that's right for you and your body today. And then in these last few breaths, see if you can just sense that space, that place that your body is at, accepting that this is where you are right now. This is this moment. It's not the moment 20 minutes ago. It's not the moment 20 minutes from now or tomorrow or next year. It's this moment. See if you can take 1 or 2 more breaths in this toe stretch, which is what it is. And then exhale, walk your hands back out, untuck your toes, and really gently give them a little tapping along the floor. Very gentle. Give them a little chance to loose out a bit. All right. So I'm going to come up to standing, and we'll do just a few standing postures, and then we'll come down to the floor and start wrapping up this practice. Help yourself up to standing however makes sense for you. You might have your hand on the wall. If you are familiar with Vinyasa yoga, maybe you make a transition or you do the old just stand up. And that's what I'm going to do, the just stand up. So I know it's maybe a little hard to see my head, but we're going to be doing some squatting and chair poses in a moment. So first find your mountain, and just like our standing kneeling, our mountain is that firm position of our feet on the floor. Remember, I'm looking at you, but you are looking to have your head straight forward, so it's fine if you want to turn toward me this way, whatever way your mat is oriented, that allows your chin to be centered over your chest, that allows your body to feel strong and steady, and yet not at all stiff. And you can feel how it feels to be stiff. It's not really comfortable, it's not really strong, it's not really steady, versus you relax that stiffness and you're steady. So we'll move into chair pose. You can decide for your chair pose where you want the position of your feet. So chair pose is sometimes performed with the feet all the way together, the legs together. You see I have nice generous thighs, and the legs all the way together doesn't feel right to me. So I like mine about pelvis or hip width apart. I'm going to practice today's chair with my hands at heart center. You can have your hands out. You can have them overhead, wherever you like. This gives me a little sense of grounding, especially with my thumbs tips lightly touching my sternum. And then I'm going to start to bend from my knees at the same time I hinge at the hips, but I'm not hinging all the way over this way in a forward bend. I'm hinging just enough to send my hips, my buttock, my tailbone toward the wall. So this is chair pose. This is my chair pose for today. Sometimes your chair might be a little stool. Sometimes your chair might be one of those like high bar chairs. Maybe somewhere in between, wherever your chair pose is for you. From chair, we're going to move into goddess. We're all goddesses. It doesn't matter what gender you identify as. We're all goddesses. So remember that. I'm going to step out with my left foot, so the foot that's closest to the screen. And take a big step out so that I come out into like a 45-degree angle. My toes are a little turned out. My knees are going in the direction of my toes. So look to see if your knees kind of collapse inward. That probably will feel a little more loosey-goosey and less stable. That's all we're looking for, is that stable place of the knees. And then on an exhaler, moving with your breath, step back around to your chair. And in between, you might want to stand up and give those thighs a little release. That's fine. Back into chair whenever you're ready. You may want to touch your thumb tips between your eyebrows. That's the area that's sometimes called our third eye. That can feel really grounding. And then I'll move my thumb tips back to my sternum as I step away to the other side. And then moving with breath back to the front. Whew, I'll step up and release, and we'll do one more on either side. Take a breath. Chair pose can be pretty intense. Sinking back into chair. Opening toward me into your goddess. And this time I'm going to take up a little bit of a cactus arms. I'm hitting the wall here, but I'll just use the wall for a little support. Nice deep breath in. Exhale back through the chair. I'll put my thumbs right at my third eye or in between my brows. You can stand if you wish. And then exhale, opening up into my goddess. Nicely use the support of the wall here. Next breath back through center. And then exhale to release. So you might feel wobbly, your legs will certainly have engaged there. Notice how your body is supporting you. Even if it's shaking or feeling wobbly, your body is supporting you. So we'll finish the standing work with a little mini squat. So like we did with chair, except this time legs wide. And you can lean your mini squat all the way back on the wall if you'd like, or you can stay away from the wall. Leaning the wall feels nice after the work we already did. Lean down your elbows toward the inside of your thighs. And this is like coach pose, or sometimes it's called pep talk pose. You're giving a pep talk, maybe to yourself. From pep talk pose, if you have any space to lower your bottom a little more, you can lower more into malasana or yoga squat, and you see I'm using the wall for this. Squats can be really grounding, really that sense of the ground, and in this case the wall supporting us. One more breath, and then on my exhale I'm going to slide right down the wall. All right, so one little balance pose on the floor. Yes, we can do balance on the floor. We're going to do boat pose at the wall. And I call this grounded boat, or maybe your boat in dry dock. So that's what we're going to do. The idea, we're all kind of in dry dock right now, right? The idea of grounding our boat pose and using the wall to support us. So I'm going to turn so that my feet are at the wall. And I'm moving a little off my mat because I know that's about the space I'll need for my feet. You'll see I'm starting with my toes right on the wall. I'm going to move my hands behind me, and your fingers can be facing toward your feet or maybe out to the sides if that feels better on your shoulders. And you'll see I've leaned back into this. I'm right on the bottom part of my tailbone, right on the sits bones. I'm leaning back. My back is just kind of hinged back. It's still long. And then from here, I can walk my feet up the wall. In fact, I'm going to come a little closer. That feels good. So now I've got my boat pose at the wall. I'm in dry dock. I can open my sternum, my chest toward the sky. Can breathe deep. Maybe you play with one hand off for a second, maybe the other, or maybe you just enjoy the support that the wall is giving you. Allow yourself to be grounded and docked here. And then as you exhale, walk your feet down, walk your hands in, and turn around so that you're seated next to the wall. So we'll finish with a couple of twists, and then you'll have a chance to rest a little bit as we conclude the practice. The first will be a seated twist. I'm going to grab my pillow again and put it just under my sits bones, the part that was supporting me in boat. And the reason why I'm going to do this is so I can tilt my pelvis forward a little bit in my seat. This is seated staff pose, a nice upright L shape. And so I can feel my spine long and upright rather than slumped over. This is my ground. I can ground myself with my hands too, pushing my fingertips into the ground. You can use your object to push into the ground if your arms feel really short today. And bend your knee closest to the wall. Can bend a little or a lot. The opposite toes stay pointing to the ceiling. Breathe in again. Rise up your spine long. And as you exhale, twist toward the wall and use your hands on the wall to help you gently crawl around. If anything is getting in the way of your body, you can adjust the position of your knee. You can slide your flesh or whatever's there out of the way so that you have more space to turn your body toward the wall. You'll see my spine is still staying nice and upright. Maybe I have a little more room here. And then exhale, walk back around, and we'll do that on the second side. So I'm just going to flip around so that you can see that on the second side. You can see my little bit of a support to my pillow. Bending my knee on the second side, uprighting my spine, leaning forward from the pelvis a little bit, taking a deep breath in and growing tall. And then as I exhale, using the wall to help give me a little crawl. Each breath in, the sense of the spine growing tall and long. And then on the exhales, I can explore, is there more space here? And last exhale, turn back around. Finish for your second in your staff pose. Feel how in this position you can be strong and steady also, like a staff. And once again, whatever parts of the body are touching the earth, touching the floor, touching the carpet or mat, those are the parts that are helping ground you in this moment and helping you root to have some rise and lift. Draw your feet in. So we'll finish with a brief rest. I have a quote that I want to read to finish and finish with a mudra. I'm going to suggest that you find a comfortable rest pose. If you would like a longer rest, then you can try one of my other videos. I would suggest one of my restorative videos might be beneficial. Those are generally about 10 to 15 minutes long, so you could tack that on at the end for some breath work and then a restorative pose. You can stay seated in any comfortable seat. You can also come around to lying, and maybe you lie with your knees gently resting toward each other. Maybe you swing your legs around up the wall. Oh, look, I have my little pillow right here. Perfect. So you lie or sit, whatever position is comfortable for you. I'm going to come back up to a seated position. Take just a few moments to sit and breathe here. And then I'll share the quote that I wanted to share and offer a mudra to end the practice. So let's take about 5 or 6 resting breaths together. Continue to rest mindfully for a few more breaths. The quote that I wanted to share is from author Steve Goodier, or Goodier. He said, "Get yourself grounded, and you can navigate even the stormiest roads in peace." So that's the idea behind grounding, is we're not trying to control the storm or change what is going on outside. We're trying to change what is going on inside. You might see it as a ocean with rough seas on the surface, but then you are in the calm that's underneath in the deep waters. That is your grounding. To conclude today's practice, help yourself back up to a seated position. The mudra I want to suggest is Prithvi mudra. It's earth mudra with the tips of the ring fingers and the thumbs touching each other. So mudras are really another way of grounding. If this speaks to you, if when you place your fingers together like this, you have that sense of being in your body, feeling calm, you can rest your hands on your thighs, then that is something that maybe is helpful and useful for you to do. If not, it's completely not necessary. So you can continue to hold the mudra or take one breath with me, circling the arms up, reaching tall, and then hands together as you exhale. Slide the hands down through center. Maybe once more, resting the thumb tips near your sternum or lightly against your sternum. That sense of our hand resting on our own body. You can also place your hands over your heart. Allows us to ground. Thank you so much for joining me for this practice. If you have any comments, please let me know. Anything you want to see. Be well and stay safe.